Hi, I'm Venus from the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. Dating is hard enough as it is, but when you're trying to find a partner for a one-sided open relationship where she gets to have extra fun and they both love it that way, it's even harder. I'm happy to announce there's finally a matchmaking service for singles who would like a loving cuckolding relationship. It's called Venus Connections. It's totally safe and completely private. Everything's behind a privacy wall. There's no scrolling through profiles. It's a matchmaking service. We work hard to find what it is that you are looking for, and we take the time to get to know you. And there's a 3-week course that's included. You can learn more at venusconnections.com. Matchmaking for loving, cuckolding relationships. On this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. These are the kind of sentiments that some guys feel about cuckolding. That it's not possible for someone to love me because I can't give them the quality of sex that other guys do. Here we go. Let's dive right into this. Scarlett, tell me what you think is behind this. Is it the messaging that cucks or guys are getting, or what is this?
A cuckoldress will have many bulls, but she will only have one cuck. And it's so true that this position that he has in her life is so valuable. Nobody will ever replace or take his place. Like, he is in that just very, very special, deep place of deep romantic love that no one else can give her. So a question for your listeners who are interested in cuckolding: if you look at it that way, instead of looking at it like, oh, I'm really into this and it turns me on, think about the fact that this is an opportunity for you to do something for the woman that you love that no one else can do for her. No one can give that gift unless they're in that ultimate place of love and trust.
Welcome to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast, a place to learn all things cuckolding for the curious, the passionate, and the sexually empowered woman who wants it all. Make sure you go to venuscuckoldress.com to subscribe to the podcast and check out the Venus blog. And of course, if you love it, share it. Now, sit back, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the show with your host, Venus.
Welcome to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. I am your host, Venus. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Wow. Okay, so this episode is quite possibly the most important episode I've done so far. I need all of the cucks listening out there to pay close attention to what we say on this episode, because the message absolutely needs to be heard, and it needs to be heard loud and clear. So my friend, Cuckoldress Scarlett, she's joined me as a guest on this podcast before, is joining me again for today's episode. And we are going to talk about the true value and worth of cuckolds. And make sure that you listen all the way to the end of today's episode, because there is a very special message for all of you. So Cuckoldress Scarlett writes a blog called Cuckoldress Musings, and it's on cuckoldressscarlett.com. And her and I are just going to get into it today. So let's just dive right in. No wasting any time. Let's go. Scarlett, thank you so much for joining me on this really important conversation today. I think out of all of the conversations that we've had, and we've had a lot, which is great, I think that this one is the most important, really, because let me give you some background on what happened. We received an email that was a little bit upsetting, but it sparked this conversation. And this is the reason why we're having this discussion today. So thank you so much, Scarlett, for joining me today on this episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Venus. I'm just amazed to have this third opportunity to be on the podcast. The work you've done is just incredible. You're really clearing up a lot of the misconceptions out there about cuckolding relationships. And I think we're going to do some more of that today. So I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we will. We will. The message better be clear. And it will. Okay. So to kind of tie into this, there was this amazing article that I want to talk about first that you wrote on your blog. And it's called Cuckolding from Abundance. And I totally felt that article because I have been asked the same question over and over and over, or been given the same statement over and over and over again that you mentioned in that article. So how about you just kind of like quickly explain what was it that inspired that article and what was it all about?
Yeah, I wrote Cuckolding from Abundance. It was actually an interesting series of events. So, I've been so lucky since joining the cuckolding community to have the opportunity to talk about our cuckolding dynamic and our expression of cuckolding, and also field questions from those who are curious about cuckolding dynamics and want to know more about what it's actually like within a cuckolding relationship. And I started to notice that there was a pattern to the questions that I was being asked. There were questions like, are you still sexually attracted to your fiance? Do you guys still have a vibrant sex life? Has your desire for your cuckold reduced or diminished or changed since you started initiating cuckolding and sleeping with bulls? And I would answer each of those questions very simply, like, no, my sexual passion for him hasn't changed at all. If it has changed, it's just gotten better. Absolutely, I'm still attracted to him. Nobody could replace him in my life. And I answered those questions time and again. And I began to realize there's got to be something behind this. Why do people have this impression of cuckolding relationships? And, it was kind of an exploration of that. And I actually came across two opposing perspectives that people take. And they have these perspectives in a lot of regards, in regards to financial outlook, in regards to occupational opportunities. So when people think about the world and what's out there in the world, you either have a scarcity mindset, which is the belief that these opportunities, financial opportunities, job opportunities, whatever it is, are diminishing, that there's a pie chart, and that, we have got to get our slice of the pie, because if we don't, there may not be enough to go around. That's the core belief of the scarcity mindset. And then on the opposite side of that, you have the abundance mindset, which is the belief that there is more than enough to go around. And that, you live your life understanding that there is an overflow of abundance. And psychologists have actually studied people with these two mindsets and have shown that people with an abundance mindset have more life satisfaction, are generally happier people, have less, issues with depression. And so when I saw those two opposing mindsets and had them presented to me, I realized I think that is what is behind a lot of these misconceptions around cuckolding. I think that people with a scarcity mindset look at cuckolding and may have the impression that if my wife or girlfriend has sex with someone else, then her sex drive is going to diminish. That's going to deplete from that pie chart of her sexual, reserve, really. That's how they see it. And people with the abundance mindset, they feel completely opposite, that her sexuality is just an overflowing well. And people who with cuckold desires really see that abundance as a beautiful thing. I wrote in the blog that my cuck noticed my ability to be many things for many people, to overflow with this abundance before I even did. And so I recognize that we come from an abundance mindset. And I think that people with a scarcity mindset might have trouble understanding that when I have sex with a bull and I include my cuck, that doesn't deplete from my sexual reserve for him. That actually amplifies my sexual desire for him, because I want to share every minute of that experience with him. So that was what I wrote about, and it's had a really great impact. And I think people can recognize within themselves those two mindsets and how it is shaping their view of cuckolding.
Yeah, and I had not thought about it in that way until you wrote about it. And then I was like, yes, that explains a lot, because you and we've been saying the same message from day one, that this is all about expanding your sex life together. This is an expansion. Yes. This is not just about her expanding and his diminishing. That's not what it's about. And so we've been saying the same thing over and over again. I have been saying it for years. And yet this is it's just for some reason not getting across. And it was a little frustrating for me for a long time, because I'm like, why do these questions keep coming up? Same question over and over again. There must be something, like you, there must be something behind this. So I'm really glad that you connected the dots and kind of put that out there. And now this kind of makes more sense. So this was the beginning of this conversation that I wanted to have with you. And then, funny enough, we had this email come through, and I was pissed off. I'm going to admit, I was pissed off at first when I got this email, because it was like, you like cuckolding, but why would you like a cuck? You don't want him sexually. Why wouldn't you just leave him? He's not significant, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And I was pissed off because, first of all, like I said, I've been saying my love for cucks for years and that they're special and they're respected and heard and wanted and fucking valued so much. And yet there's this kind of this like flippant, you must not care for them. I'm like, this is not what I've been saying. And so I felt like it was kind of ignorance on his part, so I was pissed off, and we chatted together. Anyway, he emailed you as well, and you had some correspondence with him. And I just love the way that it has turned out, because it was a real kind of reflective and real looking deeper inwards into what is causing this. And you especially had the opportunity to explain this. But first of all, before we talk about that, I just want to go over some of the things. These are the kind of sentiments that some guys feel about cuckolding. And I'm quoting these things because these are things that I have come across. These are statements I have come across over the years that I think are quite reflective of this this idea out there of cuckolding. So the first one being that it's not possible for someone to love me because I can't give them the quality of sex that other guys do. So there's this link between PIV sex and love. And without that, it doesn't exist. Or if it's very little of that and she's only doing it for, pity or whatever, then it's not real love. Oh, it drives me nuts. Anyway, and then the other one, cuckolding has always felt to me like, quote unquote, I don't really want you sexually. So there's this, like, again, this link to You will only want to love someone if you are having actual PIV sex with them. And then this is the other one. If you blatantly state that you prefer sex with black guys, then you must be repulsed by your boyfriend or husband's body who's white. You must be repulsed by it. You know, this is you love.
What an assumption.
Right? You love interracial porn. You must hate the way that white guys look. How could you be with your fiance or husband or boyfriend? How could you? There is this real anger by that. And the last thing, why don't you just leave him? And I've had so many people over the years say, if you like sex with black guys so much, why don't you just have a relationship with a black guy? Why do you even need a cuck? That I have been asked literally, 200 plus times. And I, again, answered it the same all the time. So here we go. Let's dive right into this. Scarlett, tell me what you think is behind this. Is it the messaging that cucks or guys are getting, or what is this?
Yeah. Oh, so much to unpack there, right? And I'm just so grateful that for the men with these desires who have shared their true feelings with us. I can only speak from my experience in my cuckolding dynamic with the man that I love. But I do believe I have some insight from our experience that may shed some light here. So another misconception is this belief that couples who come into cuckolding and transition to that dynamic from a monogamous relationship do so because they had a lacking sex life or a lackluster sex life. And the man introduced cuckolding to sort of satisfy his wife or give her something that he can't. That, in my experience, and in 99% of the cuckoldresses I know, that again is opposite the truth. We had great sex lives, the best sex lives we've ever had before initiating cuckolding. So it's actually the opposite of what a lot of people think, because there is no way that you can enter into this next level trust, next level love, unless you've already had that safety, that closeness, that intense trust with one another to experience an intensely satisfying sex life. And that's, again, where the abundance comes in, because the cuck wants, my cucks in general want me to be able to, and cuckoldresses to be able to overflow with all of that sexual energy. And then they can bask in that because he is elevating and giving that gift to her. So I think that's a misconception that needs to be tackled, because cucks are great sex partners, period.
Mm-hmm.
Cucks are awesome in bed. And so we need to just dispel that myth right here and now. And my theory, Venus, about where some of this comes from, and you just talked about this recently in your episode with Jack, it's unfortunately, it kind of always comes back to the content, the porn, the cuck captions that are out there that propagate these messages. And 90% of the content that you see in cuckold captions and in porn is about elements of our sex life that are just one part. Small penis humiliation, one part of our sex life. Chastity, one part. Denial. Okay, so all of these elements that if you look up cuckolding online, that's what you're going to find. These are dynamics that are part of a much larger relationship that is built on a foundation of love and trust. They have a place in my relationship, but they are not the whole of my sexual relationship with my cuck. And so the context of that is lost. The consent is lost. A lot of times when you look at this content, it looks like the cuckoldress is doing this to the cuck.
Yes.
that he has lost his agency. And that is the furthest things from the truth. Cucks have full agency and consent in these sexual, dynamics. And so I believe that men who consume this content and get these messages, this scarcity messaging, a lot of times they may be consuming it on their own while they're aroused. And and when you're aroused, you are not thinking critically about what you're consuming. And so they get aroused, they look at the content, they get all this scarcity messaging that can really affect their self-esteem. And then, they finish masturbating or whatever, close the window, and it's over. And then they get aroused again and they get drawn again to that content. And that happens over and over and over again. And I think that when a man makes a decision, you know what, I actually want to pursue this. I want to give this gift to my wife or my girlfriend. And he starts thinking about it in real life, like living this out. All of a sudden, there's this rush of fear, and all of that messaging comes back. Does this mean I'm a worthless sex partner? Does this mean she won't want me anymore? Does this mean she's only going to want this certain type of man with this length of penis or this color skin? And it's like, absolutely not. That is not the case at all. But unfortunately, men who consume this content, a lot of times I think that's why men never live this out, because they never get the experience of actually feeling the intense trust and reciprocal sexual energy that comes from a real cuckolding situation. So I would just say, people have got to consume mindfully and be aware of what's entertainment and what is reality, because a real cuckolding dynamic, has a lot of these elements, but it's all done in the context of a loving and trusting, committed relationship. And I think that's just what gets lost completely in translation.
Absolutely. So I remember that interview with Jack, and what really stood out with me was when he said, he used that word baggage. He said, I entered into this cuckolding, they entered into cuckolding together, but I entered into it with baggage. And I was like, what? Like, I honestly had never thought about that at all, ever. Because as he explained, his wife entered into it without any baggage. It was just fun. Like, oh my God, okay, let's do this, nothing but positivity. But for him, he used that word baggage. And I was like, well, what do you mean baggage? And then he went on to explain the years and years of bad messaging that he had received from porn and porn captions and all of that sort of stuff. And I thought, what? Like, this is not something I have thought about before. But now, connecting all of these dots to these repetitive questions over the years, to your blog post that you wrote, now this is all making sense. And so you talk about men should be more mindful of the content that they consume. I absolutely do believe that. But I think that the awareness of this problem should be talked about. And
absolutely.
This messaging is so harmful for self-esteem. It's harmful for relationships too, because this person now has baggage about it that he said to this day, Jack said he's still unpacking that baggage. Like,
and my cuck is too. Absolutely. Right? It's a process. Yeah.
And now that I know all of this, I'm like, this makes sense for a lot of the behavior that I came across with my first cuck. And I was like, oh my God, this all makes sense. But we were not talking about it. This was like, for me, it was all great. Like, let's do this. This is so fun, exciting, the relationship of my dreams, yada, yada, yada. But now I'm like, oh my God, we need to address this. This is not okay. And so I think that with your blog and, this podcast and several other podcasts and several other blogs and people just speaking, women, I should say, no, back up. Women speaking about the value of a cuckold as the most amazing partner in a loving cuckolding
Yes.
relationship. And the foundation is that loving relationship. The more we speak about that, hopefully, the more we can change that narrative. But however, when I think about that part, and I've always said women are the key to cuckolding when it comes to
Yes.
having this lifestyle being understood and accepted. Women are the key. And so when you're talking about let's have men be mindful of the content that they consume, I want to just state that let's just realize for a second that 99% of the cuckolding content out there, if you go online, you search cuckolding, you go into porn, you search cuckolding, you go, to the porn captions, the literotica, all of this stuff, 99% of it is created by men pushing this message for a male audience.
Right.
Because let's face it, there's not a lot of women out there looking up this stuff. And maybe they're not, because this is not attractive. What the messaging that they're getting is not attractive. I don't blame them. And so what I want to just pause for a second and ask this question: what would it look like if 99% of the messaging out there, the content out there, was from a woman's perspective, whether that be created by women or women having a seat at the table when this is created, having a voice in all of that? And I can't help but think that the messaging would be through a loving relationship lens and not from this kind of degradation, you're not good enough, kind of storyline that, let's face it, is easy to portray on screen, in text. That storyline works. You can understand it. But let's face it, if you look at cuckolding through a relationship lens, it's complex. It's emotional. Yes. It is, it's evolving. It's all that is not easy to portray.
That doesn't sell very easily. Yeah.
No.
It's only the titillating stuff that sells. But I like to think of it as a funhouse mirror. Like, you look in a funhouse mirror and your reflection is distorted. And that's what all of that porn and captions is. It's a distorted, like, some parts of it are way blown up to a completely wrong proportion, and some parts are completely gone. So it's a reflection that isn't accurate to what real couples that are practicing this way of life look like. And that's a huge problem. I think if women really were behind 99% of the content, absolutely, the focus would be on the loving relationship, and everything that, 90% of that story would be the cuck and cuckoldress. Yeah. Their love, their romance. And that 10% is the platonic and friendly and happy relationships she has with her bulls, those deep friendships, but that's only the 10%. And you would never see that in a porn, So absolutely, I think it's fascinating to think about what it will be like. We're just going to say will one day when the narrative about cuckolding is told by women, for women and men, who are really interested in this lifestyle.
Yeah. And what really got me thinking about that was your comment in the last Pillow Talk event that we did on Crowdcast through Patreon, which there was a question from someone who was in the audience. And the question was, if you could change one thing about the lifestyle, what would it be? And I've actually gone back and watched the replay of that Pillow Talk episode, because you caught me off guard with your answer. And I was like, oh, fuck all the rest of these answers. What she's talking about is like, this is it. This is absolutely it. And what you said, well, I'll let you say what you said, but it's all about the women.
Yeah. I wish that when people thought cuckolding, the first thought was, that's a relationship where the woman is elevated. That's a relationship where her sexuality is encouraged and celebrated in whatever form or fashion that it may take. Not just this image we all have in our head about cuckolding that it's the woman sleeping with the black guy with the big dick. It's that formula that's kind of just out there. And I wish that instead of that, what we saw was this is about women stepping into their sexual power. Yes. For whatever that means for that particular woman, and the man in her life who she loves and adores and cherishes above all others. I have a wonderful friend who likes to say, a cuckoldress will have many bulls, but she will only have one cuck. And it's so true that this position that he has in her life is so valuable. Nobody will ever replace or take his place. Like, he is in that just very, very special, deep place of deep romantic love that no one else can give her. So, a question for your listeners who are interested in cuckolding, if you look at it that way, instead of looking at it like, oh, I'm really into this and it turns me on, to think about being humiliated, or I like this content I see. Think about the fact that this is an opportunity for you to do something for the woman that you love that no one else can do for her. Mm-hmm. No one can give that gift unless they're in that ultimate place of love and trust in a relationship. And so, in my opinion, that makes you elevated to an even more important level than, it's just far too much emphasis on the relationship between the bulls and the cuckoldress. That's an important relationship, but it's nowhere near the deep intimacy of the cuck and cuckoldress. And so think about it that way. Just flip the script and you will begin to see what it's actually like within these relationships. As a closing statement, look, I understand that what I have to say about the way I feel about my cuck, who is the love of my life and the force that holds my world together. Like, this is just one relationship, and we have many other wonderful couples and wonderful women and men in this lifestyle speaking out. I know that is just a tiny blip compared to all of this content, right? Mm-hmm. But when you start to realize what is going to make you feel more valued, if it's, it may not be as titillating, but this is so worth it. If you remove yourself from the content that just exists to get you off and entertain you, and plug in instead to some content that is really going to validate your experience as a sexual being. And so, cucks are wonderful. They are the best partners. They are sexy. They are challenging sexually to be with. Trust me, being a cuckoldress in relationship with a cuck is like the most challenging, exciting sex dynamic I have ever been in my life. And so if you hear this loud and clear, know that this is the reality. That's the funhouse mirror. And make that separation between the two, because you are valued as a cuck. And you can lead out the lifestyle of your dreams. It's so exciting to think about what it will be like when people realize the true from the false, right? It's just really exciting.
Love that so much, Scarlett. Okay, so as you were speaking, I was thinking of something else. So it's really wonderful for us to be able to talk about and to think about cucks being able to look at it from a different mindset in a way that helps their self-esteem and makes them realize their importance, and that it's not just about cuckolding is not just about the sexual act. It is an actual loving relationship. I love that part. However, I was just thinking, changing the messaging, changing the tone, all of that, to a relationship lens will help so many of those husbands who are scared to approach this to their wife, because I bet all of their what they've been wanting and thinking about with a cuckolding relationship is that sexual act. It's like, I really want her to go and fuck someone else. When really, if they looked at it like, I want to give her the ultimate gift of trust and love and exploration of her sexuality, approaching her in that way down that road would be probably a lot more well received than the whole, I really want you to go fuck some strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That
So,
that sounds
yeah.
scary to so many women. It's like, no, that doesn't sound safe, or
Yeah.
I don't think I would enjoy that. Yeah, it definitely would help men who want their wife to experience the fullness of her sexual power to actually be successful in that instead of frighten her away, right?
Yeah. And imagine if she went online and she was exposed to this 99% female driven content. Like, oh my
Right.
God. You know how many more women would be like, sign me up. This is great.
Well, I think we've got to get to work, Venus. We
Right?
could start putting out some real erotica and real captions and that actually are written by women, for one, because I got news for you. 90% of those captions are written by dudes, where you see the picture
Oh,
of the
yeah.
pretty lady and it's like, I'm going to lock your dick up and forget about it. That's not, a woman didn't write that. We don't speak like that.
Yeah.
Just had to throw that out there.
I would say all of them are written by men. It'd be hard to find one that was actually written by women.
And it's just mind-blowing to think that this relationship style is all about the woman. And yet our voice about our experiences is being co-opted by men. Wow. Isn't that baffling? So, that's why we have to keep writing and keep, putting out real experiences and women who are passionate and who love this relationship style like you do, Venus, and you're doing excellent work on this podcast. Thank goodness that people can access, your experience and the wonderful experience of your guests, because for a while that was all there was, right? Is just all that captions, porn stuff. And now, thankfully, real stories are more accessible than ever before. So thank you. You are a huge part of why this movement is happening, and couples are benefiting from it, across the board.
I certainly hope so. I mean, obviously the message is not entirely being heard, so therefore, we have to repeat it, which is fine. But yeah, let's flood the fucking porn captions. Let's just flood that shit with female stuff. Let's do it.
We are on a mission, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm gonna rally all the women out there. Let's do it. Okay, so I really appreciate everything that you've said, and I love how the messaging that you and I and so many other women out there are putting out, that cucks are heard, they are respected, they are valued, they are important, and they make the very best partners.
Yeah, cucks are sexy. Partners. Let's get that. Let's get that trending on Twitter. Hashtag cucks are sexy.
And most importantly, cucks are deeply loved and cherished.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scarlett, for joining me with this super important conversation that we've had today. And I hope this discussion sparks many other discussions. And like I said, let's change this messaging.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm more than willing to engage. As Venus mentioned, you can contact me on my website, cuckolderscarlett.com. I realize that, it's going to take some time, and I'm here. Like, we are here for, I said at the end of my email response, I said, cuckolding is love. That's a beautiful phrase you coined, Venus. But that love is not just about the love between the couples. Like, cuckolding is love. We've got a lot of love in this beautiful community. Mm-hmm. And so, you can access that if you want to read my blog or, send in a question to Venus, become a Patreon supporter. Everybody has a seat at this table. And if this means as much to you as it does to us, come join us. We're starting a revolution over here. But that love extends to you as well, listener. So just be aware of that. Let's share the cuckolding love and not all that other stuff. And so I just wanted to share that. Like, there's room for everybody at this table.
And where else can people find you online if they want to reach out?
Yes. So there's my blog, cuckoldressscarlet.com. There's a contact page there where you can reach me or follow me on Twitter. Cuckoldress S is my handle. Venus is Cuckoldress V. I'm Cuckoldress S. There's probably a couple other letters in the alphabet there, but I am Cuckoldress S. So it's 3 S's at the end.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today, Scarlett.
Thank you.
This is usually where I end the show with a fun little announcement about where to follow me on social media and how to subscribe to the podcast. But that is not how this show is going to end today. This message is from women all over the world who have something to say about what cucks mean to them.
Cuckolds are fun and adventurous.
Cuckolds are loving.
Cuckolds are selfless.
Cuckolds show strength and devotion.
Cuckolds are brave and courageous.
Cuckolds are intelligent.
Cuckolds are important.
Cuckolds give the ultimate gift of trust.
Cuckolds give the gift of sexual empowerment to women.
I love my cuckold husband because he is the sexiest, strongest, smartest, and most loving human I know.
I love my cucky because he has given me this gift that has made us stronger and closer and more since we've started it and the journey we continue.
I love my cuckold husband because he is my rock, my best friend, my true love.
I love my cuckold husband because of all the ways he supports me and my journey.
Cuckolds give us the safety that we need in order to be our true selves within a relationship.
I love cuckolds because of their high level of self-awareness and emotional integrity.
I love my cuckold husband, James. James is sexy and loving and my never-ending champion, without hesitation sitting beside me while I drive. Cuckolds, know that you hold your own sense of empowerment to be able to freely embrace and support your cuckoldress's sexual prowess. Being her champion is being the strongest person she will know.
I love cuckolds because they put my needs, my desires first without questioning.
I love my cuckold because he trusts me with his vulnerabilities. As Bob Marley said, being vulnerable is the only way to allow your heart to feel true pleasure. I can't think of a better way to connect with someone. Can you?
Cucks are wonderful. They are the best partners. They are sexy. They are challenging sexually to be with. Trust me, being a cuckoldress in relationship with a cuck is like the most challenging, exciting sex dynamic I have ever been in my life. If you hear this loud and clear, know that this is the reality. That's the funhouse mirror. And make that separation between the two, because you are valued as a cuck and you can lead out the lifestyle of your dreams.